From theory to liability, when the standard is not met. Now that we understand what the standard of care is, we must address the reality of what happens when it is not met. A failure to meet the standard of care is legally defined as negligence, which is the opposite of diligence. It occurs when a licensee fails to act as a reasonably prudent professional would under similar circumstances. This is where real estate shifts from compliance into liability. Even small mistakes, missed disclosures, poor communication, or lack of follow-up can become the foundation for a lawsuit. Negligence, the legal trigger for lawsuits. Negligence is not just a mistake. It is a failure to use reasonable care. It can occur when an agent acts without proper caution, performs a rash action, or fails to act when action is required. In a legal setting, negligence becomes actionable when it causes harm. This means a client or third party must suffer damages as a result of the agent's actions. This reinforces a key concept. Not all mistakes lead to lawsuits, but all lawsuits involve a failure in the standard of care. How the standard of care is applied in real life. The standard of care is not one size fits all. It varies based on the situation, the property, the client's knowledge, and the complexity of the transaction. For example, advising a first-time homebuyer requires a different level of explanation than working with an experienced investor. Similarly, a commercial transaction requires a higher level of expertise than a standard residential sale. This means agents must constantly adjust their approach. The higher the complexity, the higher the standard. Who determines a violation? A violation of the standard of care can be determined by multiple parties, including a judge, jury, the Arizona Department of Real Estate, or an AAR professional standards panel. This is important because it shows that liability can arise in multiple arenas: civil court, administrative action, or professional discipline. Brokers must prepare for all three. The civil lawsuit process. Step by step. Most civil cases begin with a complaint or demand letter from a dissatisfied party. This is often the first warning sign of potential litigation. At this stage, the issue should immediately be reported to the E&O insurance carrier. Early resolution efforts, such as informal dispute resolution, are often attempted. If unsuccessful, the case proceeds to litigation, including depositions, expert witness testimony, and possibly mediation or trial. This process reinforces a critical point. Documentation is your best defense. Without a clear paper trail, it becomes difficult to prove that the standard of care was met. The ADRI complaint process, administrative risk. In addition to civil lawsuits, licensees may face complaints through the Arizona Department of Real Estate. The process begins with an investigation, where the licensee must provide a written response. Based on the findings, the department may close the case, issue a letter of concern, or pursue formal disciplinary action. This ties directly back to earlier sections. Supervision and record-keeping are essential to surviving an audit or investigation. Consent orders and enforcement, when discipline becomes real. If sufficient evidence exists, the ADRI may pursue a consent order, which is a negotiated settlement between the licensee and the department. If a settlement cannot be reached, the case may proceed to a formal hearing before an administrative law judge. The commissioner then issues a final order, which may include suspension or revocation of the license. This highlights the seriousness of these matters. Disciplinary action can end a career. The real cost of violating the standard of care. The consequences of failing to meet the standard of care extend far beyond legal penalties. They include loss of business, damage to reputation, civil liability, and even criminal exposure in severe cases. Even if a licensee successfully defends a claim, the time, stress, and financial cost can be significant. This is why prevention is always the best strategy. Risk management is more effective than damage control. Financial consequences, damages, and legal costs. If a lawsuit is successful, the licensee may be responsible for compensatory damages, attorney fees, court costs, and potentially punitive damages if misconduct is proven. These financial risks can be devastating, especially for agents without proper coverage or documentation. This reinforces the importance of E&O insurance and strong brokerage systems. Statutes of limitation, the long tail of liability. One of the most overlooked risks in real estate is how long liability can exist. Depending on the claim, statutes of limitation can range from 1 year to 6 years, with ADRI complaints extending up to 5 years. This means that a mistake made today may not surface until years later. Proper documentation and file retention are critical to protecting against future claims. Real-world example, a preventable lawsuit. Consider an agent who fails to document a conversation where a buyer was advised to conduct additional inspections. Years later, a defect is discovered, and the buyer claims they were never informed. Without documentation, the agent cannot prove that the standard of care was met. This example highlights a critical lesson. If it is not documented, it did not happen. How this section connects forward. This section reinforces the reality that the standard of care is not just a guideline, it is the line between success and liability. Everything we have covered, supervision, licensing, compensation, and compliance, feeds directly into whether that standard is met. As we continue forward, we will focus on practical risk management strategies to ensure that brokers and agents operate at a level that protects both their clients and their careers. The takeaway is simple: meeting the standard of care is the best defense against lawsuits. Online discussion. Question 1. What is negligence in real estate? Answer. It is the failure to exercise reasonable care, resulting in harm to a client or third party. Question 2. Why is documentation critical in defending a lawsuit? Answer. Because it provides proof that the agent met the standard of care and fulfilled their duties. Question 3. Who can determine whether the standard of care was violated? Answer. A judge, jury, ADRI, or a professional standards panel.